What's up, everybody? Back with another video, and today I'll be talking a little bit about energy psychology. I have mentioned before that I'm a trained and certified facilitator in the PSYCH-K process. I've been doing that for, wow, how many years now? Since 2007. And also, I have some experience with Reiki and some experience with some other modalities, EFT, things like that. So let's talk a little bit about what is energy psychology, what can differentiate psychology, how does it work, why does it work, and maybe some resources for you guys if you want to try some out yourself, which I highly recommend. So let's get into it. Energy psychology is a new form or an emerging form of psychology. It's been around for a while now, actually. PSYCH-K, for example, has been around since 1988. There's a whole variety of these energy psychology modalities. Energy psychology is a form of psychology or a form of therapy, a type of a practice, really, if you will, that incorporates the emerging and new sciences of quantum physics into the mechanism. So think about science itself as a pyramid. Okay, so in this example, we'll talk about the different levels of this science pyramid and how they're all built upon each other, and this will give us some insight into what energy psychology is, or psychology even for that matter at all. So on the bottom level, on the ground floor level of this pyramid of science, if you will, is mathematics. Mathematics is the foundation of everything. Everything is numbers. Everything is mathematics. And some might say that humans made up mathematics to do all of this stuff like engineering. But in reality, humans just discovered mathematics. There was no creation of mathematics. Everything has mathematical formulas to it. This is something that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. It's how they built the pyramids, or influenced how the pyramids were constructed, and other types of things. So mathematics, everything has mathematics. If you want to get to the next level of science, which would be considered physics, in order to do physics, you have to have mathematics. Each one of these levels of the pyramid incorporates the level below it. So as we go up this pyramid, you'll start to see how it gets more and more refined as we go. So you got mathematics, you've got physics, which is the application of this mathematics and the use of force and things like that. And then on top of physics, you have chemistry. Chemistry is a more refined version of this science where the physics and the mathematics will build up to these chemical compounds and chemistry equations and things like that. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to be able to give you too much information on each one of these. And in fact, I actually never took physics in high school, so take that for what you will. I'm just giving you the levels and how this works so that we have an understanding of what energy psychology is. On top of chemistry, you have biology. Biology is the living organisms that come together through chemical processes, through the power of physics and the mathematics to describe it all. On top of biology, then you have psychology. Psychology is the mind. Psychology is the field that's generated from the brain, if you will. So in these levels, you got math, physics, chemistry, biology, psychology. And based on a pyramid in this structure, if any one of these levels on the lower tiers is changed, then it's going to affect all of the levels on the top. Now, for a long time, mathematics was operating from a certain paradigm of thinking, like that really just kind of constricted it to a certain operational flow. And to try to make this concise and to the point here, the fundamental difference that changed in mathematics, that changed everything, was fractal geometry. How there is this self-repeating similar pattern that occurs in nature, that occurs all throughout nature. There's plenty of stories and books you can read about the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence, how there's just this, it's kind of a mathematical equation that shows how everything is connected. Now, on top of that, the big shift that happened in physics in the early 1900s was the shift from Newtonian physics into quantum physics. Quantum physics shows how everything is energy. Everything is all entangled in this energetic field of energy. So when that change happened, in particular in science in the early 1900s, I think it was 1925 when quantum physics was like officialized as a science, it changed everything from the ground level up, essentially. And for the whole 20th century, our understanding of psychology, which is on this higher level of the pyramid, did not really catch up to this idea of the change in quantum physics. Because if everything is energy, that means that if physics is energy and physics is quantum physics, that means that biology has to include physics as well, this new quantum physics. Meaning that the cells are not these physical things necessarily, they're these energy fields, and they're all made of energy. So if the biology changes to energy, which you can get more into that with my Uncle Bruce's stuff in terms of epigenetics and signal transduction, how energy can affect cells and whatnot, of course, by default, it's going to affect the psychology. This is where energy psychology comes in. Instead of your traditional type of therapy or psychotherapy, you sit around with a therapist and you just talk about your problems over and over again. It's based on the old world view of it. The original physics and the original psychology was that your past is in the past, and whatever happened to you is just part of your imprinting. It's a physical pathway in your brain. And let's say you had a traumatic experience in your past. You go to a therapist in your traditional psychology setting. It's kind of like, okay, well, let's just talk about it and release some of that trauma so that we can maybe let go and process. Now, sure, a lot of really good things have happened from this, but there's really, it doesn't incorporate the quantum physics aspect of it, because the idea is that if you just talk about it and relive it, kind of like rehashing and remembering what happened, it'll give you some sort of therapy. But the idea is you have to keep doing it over and over again. Like Freud's psychotherapy process, psychoanalysis process, it's just like you keep doing it over and over again. It's like the more you talk about it, the more you talk about it. But a lot of times in this new field of science, we start to find out with quantum physics and how everything's energy and how the subconscious really works, you can actually change the way that you perceive the past. And I talked about this in my previous video in terms of like time, holographic time. So to try to bring this more into a focal point here, energy psychology is a new form of psychology that allows you to use consciousness to literally change your physical nature or your physical traumatic past, or however you want to look at it that way. Traditional psychotherapy or traditional therapy is just like you have to talk about it, and it's just really a conscious mind activity. Energy psychology incorporates a more diverse field of therapy, where you're not just using your conscious mind, you're using your subconscious mind. And the thing is, between the conscious and the subconscious minds, they communicate differently, or you have to talk to them in different ways. The subconscious is your habit mind, and your conscious mind is the part of you that's analytical and thinking. Like the part of me that's talking to you right now is like the conscious mind, whereas the subconscious mind is running everything else, like my mannerisms, my breathing, my heart rate, my blinking. All of these things are happening automatically due to the subconscious programs that are in there. Now, Uncle Bruce would talk about the subconscious mind being like a tape recorder or a recording device where, let's say you want to change the tape or change the recording. You don't just talk to the recording device and say, I want you to change. You actually have to use a different form of communication. So in this case, in this example, you actually have to press the rewind button and then press the record button. You don't talk to the recorder to change it. You have to actually physically press the buttons. So energy psychology is a field of psychology, a field of science that teaches you how to press those buttons, a form of communication where you can actually physically reprogram the subconscious mind. Instead of having to talk about it and just review the subconscious mind like traditional psychotherapy or psychoanalysis, energy psychology is a much more efficient way of actually changing it. So if you want to change your programming or change your habits, there are some interesting little tricks and tips on how to do that. That's what energy psychology is. Another more trendy term for this is biohacking. If anyone's heard of biohacking, think of your body as a computer, or of your body as a system that if you have like an Apple computer, for example, everything kind of happens in the background. It's very user-friendly. But if you're using a PC, there's a lot more manual work that you have to do, installing drivers and deleting files in the directories and stuff. So there's more involved with PCs in my experience. And of course, you could do that with Mac as well. But just in this example, this is the difference between traditional psychology and energy psychology. Energy psychology is a way for you to literally hack your system into reprogramming it in a very efficient and quick way. So Energy psychology is really cool, and there's a whole lot of variety of modalities of these energy psychologies. There's not just a one shoe fits all scenario with energy psychology, because everybody has their own subjective experience. Everybody's different. Everybody has something else going on that makes them unique, and this is part of what their subconscious mind is. And there's also a relationship with their higher superconscious mind as well. We can get into that in another video, but for this particular example, we could talk about the subconscious mind. And another way to break this down too is that you have an objective viewpoint or experience, objective reality, and then you also have a subjective experience. And quantum physics, on that ground level, on that physical level of science, the science shows that your subjective experience can actually outweigh your objective reality. Point being, something like the placebo effect, and your belief in a pill to heal you can actually heal you versus the actual pill itself. So in the placebo effect, you may take something that it's like, oh, this pill is going to heal my whatever. When you find out years later that there was actually nothing in that pill at all, it was just a sugar pill. It was, and you got healed. How is that possible? That's because your subjective experience, your belief that the pill was going to heal you, actually healed you. So it wasn't the pill, it was the belief. This is your subjective experience. This is really what the nature of energy psychology taps into, is your belief and your subjective experience, which is why there's so many. Now let's go over a couple of these different energy psychology modalities. I'm gonna give you three. There are tons of them. You can look into all these yourself, but I'm gonna give you three that will give you a nice spectrum of the different kinds and levels of energy psychology or biohacking that you can do. Okay, so we're in the spectrum. In the three, we're going to talk about one that's more spiritual per se, more energetic. We're going to talk about one that on the other side of the spectrum is much more technical, much more scientific and like system based. And then in the middle, we're going to talk about one that blends the two, something that has some spirit reality to it, and then another one and also has a scientific process to it. And there's a whole lot in between. So let's start with the spiritual one first. And this one, out of the three I'm going to list, is definitely the oldest. This is something called Reiki. Reiki, what is Reiki? Reiki is something that, if you haven't heard about it before, it's a form of energy healing. And it's been around for a very long time. I've had some experience doing Reiki, and essentially what it does is it uses these hands-on healing methods to really affect your energy body, because you have a physical body that you can feel and touch and see in the mirror, but the energy body is a little bit more subtle than that. So think about a magnet, and the magnet has a magnetic field around it. You can't always see the magnetic field unless you put it under a paper and you sprinkle some metal on top of it. You can see the field. Our bodies are the same thing. We have an energetic field, and Reiki is one of these ways where you can actually do hands-on healing to the field itself, and by interfering with that field constructively, using consciousness, by using certain symbols and patterns and certain hand positions. You've heard of things like the chakras here. You've got these different energy centers in the body that affect different things in our experience. Reiki has this means of basically tapping into that as a Reiki master. Let's say I'm in need of some Reiki healing. There's going to be a Reiki master who's going to basically do the work. They're going to put the hands on me, and or on my field, and they're going to influence my energy. So there'll be a theme of this throughout all of the energy psychology modalities, of the subject or the person who needs the healing, and then the technician or the master or the facilitator. This is the same relationship that you have as a patient and a doctor, or the churchgoer and the priest. There's this relationship between the person who needs and the person who can give, receiving and the giving part. So Reiki is this really, really beautiful energetic process of, I guess the best way I could describe it, it massages your energy body into a more relaxed and balanced state. And I've had great experience with that, and it can affect your beliefs. So that's one of them. That's a form of energy. You could call that an energy psychology. It's been around before energy psychology was even coined as a term, but let's just keep that in mind. So on the other side of the spectrum, you have the more technical side, something called Neuro-Linguistic Programming, otherwise known as NLP. Neuro-Linguistic Programming, very simply, looks at the body as a computer, and your brain is the processor, and your beliefs are the programs. This is very easy way to look at this. And just like in Reiki and a lot of these things, you have an NLP technician or NLP practitioner. So if I have a belief in my system, something I want to change, like let's say I don't want to eat bagels anymore. I eat too many bagels, and bagels are taking over my life. I can go to an NLP technician, and then they will say, okay, well, clearly you have a program in your subconscious that is associated with eating bagels, and you want to change that. So an NLP technician can actually do a similar process where they have a technique and a method of kind of tricking the magnetic field of the body, rewiring it to install a new program. So that's the idea. It's like your brain's a computer, and we're going to install a new program. We're going to take an old program out, put a new program in. And it's like, okay, whatever you want. If you have a computer and you want to install a new program, it's like, hey, there's a lot of freedom there. You could do whatever you want. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own take on a lot of these things. But from my understanding of it, in this explanation, Neuro-Linguistic Programming very much looks at it from just a scientific, technical standpoint. You're a computer. We can put new programs in. So we have these two. We have Reiki, which is very spiritual, energetic body massage thing that can affect your beliefs. And we also have the NLP, which is much more scientific and looks at your brain like a computer. We can put new programs in. And then in the middle, I would classify PSYCH-K as the really good blend between old spiritual and new science into the same thing. Now, PSYCH-K came around in 1988, and it has to do with reprogramming your subconscious beliefs. There is a higher level to PSYCH-K that now is being taught in the workshops. If you start looking at, if you go to psych-k.com, you can find out more about PSYCH-K and all that. But to give a little bit more context, self-help is where a lot of these things come in. If you go to a bookstore, you go to the self-help section, there's going to be tons of books on all this stuff. Because and oftentimes self-help, as it's publicized by people like Anthony Robbins, it's like, are you living a crappy life? Do you want to change your life? It's like, what do you want? Are you not getting what you want? There's that documentary, The Secret, which was all about the law of attraction. It's like, oh, well, the universe is like a big vending machine. Whatever I want, if I just change my mind, it'll come to me. It's just I get what I want. And that's like a lot of times that's what self-help kind of orients itself around, or at least that's the entry point. But in PSYCH-K, it's you could do all that. You can get the self-help things like new job, new house, new car, happiness, all these things. But there's a higher and more deeper level to this, which is this deeper connection to nature. Ask yourself, what are the beliefs of nature? Does nature have beliefs? And are my beliefs in harmony with nature? PSYCH-K has this really wonderful process that allows you to kind of tap into this higher, deeper understanding of what is fulfillment in life? What is happiness? How can we attain and maintain happiness in our lives that will make us feel more connected on a spiritual level? This is the spiritual part of it. But then there's a science aspect of PSYCH-K where it's best way I can describe it, it's like a scientific method. You follow a protocol. In scientific method, you create a hypothesis, or you have a problem, you create a hypothesis how to solve the problem, then you do an experiment, you do observations, and then based on the results, you see if it matches the hypothesis, and you keep repeating it until you have some sort of repeatable situation. PSYCH-K has that scientific process to it. So it's got that technical aspect like NLP does, where it's like you are a computer, we can put new programs in, but it also has the spiritual component, like, is this program, is this thing that you want in your best interest on the greater scheme of things? That's something that a lot of these other technical NLP type things, in some cases that I've experienced, don't really incorporate. There's no real permission and commitment protocol in the sense of like, yeah, you may want this, but is this really going to be good for you? Is it really all about what you want? Is nature just doing all the things that it wants all the time? Or is there more of a balance to it? So Anyway, I love PSYCH-K. I've been doing PSYCH-K for years, so I'm very excited about that one. But all of them are really good. That's just because of the subjective experience. So you got to take a look at all of these for yourselves. And again, just to summarize, energy psychology is a form of an evolved and updated version of psychology that allows you to transform your life within a matter of minutes rather than just having to be dependent on that practitioner all the time. Like in PSYCH-K, there's a PSYCH-K facilitator who facilitates the healing, like in me. Let's say I have a thing I want to change. PSYCH-K facilitator will help me do the process, as opposed to doing the process to me or doing the process for me. It's the knowledge and the wisdom is within the person who's doing the healing in PSYCH-K, and that's one of the things about energy psychology is that you can change your life. You don't have to actually be, you're not predetermined. You are an energy being. You can change your life, and that's what energy psychology really has a great knack for doing. So anyway, this video is probably a little bit long, and if you stayed with me up to this point, I honor you. And definitely check out energy psychology. Remember, it's like, oh, God, it's going to be so hard. Or, oh, I've got a program. I got a habit that's just so deep. It's just such a deeply ingrained program. Like, that's just an expression. Remember, deeply ingrained, it's your brain is only like less than an inch, inside of your skull. It's like, how deep is it really? Not that deep. It's just a program. And to summarize with another computer example and what energy psychology is, let's say you have a computer that has some virus on it, or it has a program that's slowing down your operating system. Now, let's say you want to fix this problem. I'm going to give you two options. Number one, how do you do this? Option A. You get a screwdriver, you open up the computer, you have to physically take the computer parts out and put new hard drives in. Or option B, you use your mouse and your keyboard, you go into the software of the computer, and then you reprogram the software. Oftentimes, that's really the best way to fix the computer or heal the computer. If you have some sort of software issue going on your computer, you don't have to take the physical computer apart to fix it. You could do it through a different kind of language. Instead of a screwdriver, you can use the mouse. Instead of your hand, instead of the RAM and the systems and stuff, you can use a keyboard. So energy psychology is basically using the keyboard and the mouse to solve your problems, as opposed to the screwdriver and the hammer. So check it out. It's really cool, and I've had some really good experience with this over the years, and it's an emerging thing. We can heal. We can actually heal and become much more at peace quicker than we ever thought we could. So with that being said, peace up, everybody. I look forward to seeing you again next time.